Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Miracle is You. You are that miracle, and we're here today to celebrate you. The you is me, Ashley Lee, your host. The you is Brian Benson, our special guest today, and he's going to be speaking about connecting to the heart and what that really brings forward in The Miracle is You. Welcome, Brian. I'm so
No, thank
excited
you.
you're here to join us today.
It's my pleasure, Ashley. Thank you.
I love this that we're on sologynetwork.com. And Sology Network for me, this could resemble a podcast. This could resemble a podcast broadcast, but I like to call it on Sology Network a soulcast, right?
Yeah.
Connecting soul to soul, heart to heart, being to being, person to person, and all the ways that we can share our opportunities of how we became the miracle is us, the you inside of us, and how we share that then when we start to experience our miracles for ourselves. We become confident, we become gracious and humble, we become kind naturally and organically, and we begin to share that kindness with the world. Brian, would you share a little bit about how you started to notice the miracle was in you when you were younger?
Oh gosh. Well, I think when I was 3, I told my mom I was put here to inspire people, and she reminded me quite a ways later, after I'd kind of accidentally written my first book, after I just left my family business, kind of into the unknown. I was working on myself, learning how to find balance, and I just wrote down some things that I thought that would help keep me in balance, and it did work. And then my intuition started screaming, expand the list and write a book. And I'd never written anything before. This was like in 2008, but it just kind of poured through me. And after it came out, she reminded me of what I told her, and so I just kind of I now have um, a target, you know what I mean, to create positive content, and it just kind of kept evolving. From books. And as I started overcoming my fear of speaking, it kind of accidentally led into acting and other ways of kind of creating positive content, whether it was a short film or a TEDx talk or a spoken word piece. But it just kind of kept evolving, and it was really exciting and fun for me. And it was just, I really started learning how to trust, to just listen to my intuition and connect with it, and just download what it was sharing with me. And it was exciting to be able to put it out in a lot of different ways. So I guess when I was 3 was the earliest time that I remembered it, but then I was always kind of very hungry to be the best version of myself as I was growing up, even though I didn't really know that's what I was going for. But I would just get excited about things and dive into them, or want to learn about this or learn about that and how that applied to myself, etc.
That's so beautiful. And so in that I was did you say I was brought here or I was born here? How did
I think I might have had brought,
I was brought here to inspire
or I was put
people.
here. I was put here.
I was put here to inspire people. That's awesome. Now when as you know, as a kid, we feel that we are put in places, right? We're put to bed,
Right.
we're given a meal, we're taken to go shopping to put clothes on ourselves. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of pudding going on, pudding with with our childhood. And as we start to grow and start to recognize that we're interpersonally responsible and we share that, I sense that maybe that hunger evolving in there to be it yourself rather than somebody telling you what to do or how to do it. And so we start to become a co-creator in our universe, and then possibly and moving on to a primary creator in our universe. And so, what are some of those stages of development that helped you unpack what it means to inspire?
Mm. Well, are you wanting me to go kind of before I wrote my first book, or after, or
Sure, any timeline that comes up, I mean, I think that's what's so natural
yeah.
about us to access what's within inside of us.
Well, I think haven't really spent a whole lot of time thinking about it, but when I was younger, I was pretty independent. I spent a lot of time in my room by myself, just kind of decorating it with sports posters, and I loved music and would buy albums and records, and just, just kind of get lost in my own little world, and did a lot of things that would make me happy and inspire me. in my room, and whether it was music or just um, dreaming about, I love sports, and just followed it religiously, and went to flea markets with my grandparents and would buy old baseball cards. And I remember when I was, geez, probably about 10 years old, I found a magazine that had a bunch of addresses of old ball players that played like in the 20s and 30s and 40s, and I was writing them. And I was getting responses, and it was almost like potentially Christmas in my mailbox every day. And so that was a lot of fun. I would keep track when I sent it and how many days it took for them to come get me back to me. So I mean, I was very kind of, just self-motivated. You know what I mean? Just to kind of follow my passions. And
Self-motivated and follow your passions. Wow. And so in that, right, we're kind of taught from our parents, and they may or may not, we may as parents, we may or may not realize that we're kind of training our children to piggyback alongside of us, piggyback on our energy, piggyback on our finances, piggyback on the the house, the structure, the business, whatever it is. And then we decide at some particular point that the piggybacking worked or it helped pave the roadway for us.
mhm.
And then we kind of get out and we're like, which roadway shall we actually choose? Like, so what motivated, what emotions or thought processes motivated you to create that inspiration in yourself to cultivate a road that inspires people?
Well, as you had mentioned, I did start running the family. My dad was an insurance agent, but we had a golf center, a driving range, and a retail store, and a 9-hole par three course that I worked at growing up in high school a little bit. But then I ran it for 11 years, and so I did kind of piggyback on that. It was a nice opportunity. I don't know if I ever thought that that's what I would do for the rest of my life, but after about 10 or 11 years, I just started feeling like I was done. I'd stopped growing there, and I felt like I was supposed to do something else with my life. And I didn't know what it was. And that's when I kind of, that last year I was at work, we decided to sell it. So it took a little while to go through that process and find the right buyer. And so that's when I was kind of feeling out of balance. And that's when I did that whole thing and ended up working on myself and writing my first book. But so that was kind of an initiator of really listening to my intuition and trusting that it was okay to leave. I was a little worried, but he was fine with it. He just wanted me to be happy, and offering me that position, it was a nice gesture, and I learned a lot, about people and life, and so it was all perfect. But then when I left and I wrote that first book, it was just kind of like a whole brand new beginning, and it was exciting, and I probably, looking back, put a little too much pressure on myself to be like the next Wayne Dyer or whatever. I don't even want to be that now. But it was cute at the time. But it pushed me forward, and it gave me the courage to take community college speech classes and Toastmasters and an acting class and hire someone to co-host an internet radio show with me when I was just scared, like what, 15 years ago. So I did all those things to overcome my fear of speaking, and it got a little easier, and one thing led to another, and then things just kind of kept progressing in bigger ways. And I guess ultimately looking back, I was totally open to what was coming, and I wasn't trying to control it too much. Whereas maybe 10 years later, as things were evolving and my expectations changed, which didn't help, but it kind of caused me to kind of try to control the whole ball of wax a little bit tighter, which didn't help. If that makes sense, you know what I mean? I was just so free and open at the beginning, and looking back also, I realized that I was using a lot of what I was doing as a validation tool because I still had a lot of self-worthiness to work on. I mean, I'm proud of everything I've done, absolutely. But I think that probably caused me to maybe not enjoy the ride as much as I would have liked to, and to maybe trust the process even a little bit more and let go of some of the control I was trying to apply.
Let go of some of the control you were wanting to apply. So when you were wanting to apply, how did you notice that you were controlling it to be able to assess whether you could let it go or not? Like
Well,
what
I
gave you
think,
that and what gave you that inner knowing about how you're
well,
controlling?
the enjoyment factor wasn't the same.
So
And
when you're needing to control, the enjoyment factor kind of deflates.
diminishes absolutely. And I I probably, whenever I did release something, whether it was a book or a film or something, I probably didn't just sit in the happiness of like the accomplishment, and would probably add some expectation to it. And maybe when something didn't do as well as I would have hoped, even though it did what it was supposed to do, it would leave me feeling down and depressed for a little while.
Wow, that's really insightful. And when you're controlling and you notice you're controlling and it diminished your enjoyment, what did you shift inside of you to move from the need to control to the opportunity of what? What was that? What was that inspiration to shift the joy?
Well, I think it was kind of getting my butt kicked a little bit. I think it really started to happen when I got prostate cancer right at the beginning of 2020. I had to have a surgery to remove my prostate, and it just in some it was not, obviously it kind of sucked. However, it got me off the hamster wheel a little bit, and everything was shut down at that time because of COVID as well. So you kind of doubly, I was like just removed from this, of me trying to kind of make things happen and get to where I thought I was supposed to go and truly validate myself, if that makes sense. And so I had to take a break. And that was kind of the beginning of, getting off that hamster wheel and slowing down and reassessing. And it was tough in some ways, but it was also a relief in some ways because I had permission to take a break forcibly. Yeah.
That's so beautiful. I mean, what you described was you got kicked in the butt to have a pattern reset, to get off the hamster wheel. And the pattern you noticed was you were stuck in needing to control your life to be validated.
Yeah.
That's very insightful.
Thank you.
That's really awesome.
Thanks.
Okay, so when we notice we're on the hamster wheel, we
Yeah.
might be stuck in the validation wheel, circling the drain, never really being able to leave that sink or the toilet or wherever we're going down the drain.
Yeah.
And so, amongst that, when you stepped off the hamster wheel and you recognized you were using control to validate yourself, what did you utilize? What was that key or that shift to create true value?
It's been a process over the last 4 years. So after I had surgery and everything was shut down in LA, I hung around for a little while longer and just walked and just tried, get my health back. And then I ended up moving from LA. Just felt like it was time, and went back to Oregon and wintered with family. And then I intuitively felt like I was supposed to be on the road. And so I bought a used RV and drove around the US during 2021 for 6 months, from like April to September or October. And I think I think for a lot of reasons. One, it was really kind of nice to go out there and be anonymous, because I'd always put a lot of pressure on myself to kind of be perfect. I'm the self-help writer. You know what I mean? I'm creating positive content. I need to look a certain way. And I think that also kept me from being my true authentic self. Not that I had anything to hide, but I think that trip was the beginning of me getting back to that fun part of myself that I had lost when I started feeling like I needed to be a certain way, when a lot of that happened. So when a lot of the creativity started happening. So the trip was amazing. It was great, but it's like, no matter where you go, that's where you are. And so if you still have stuff you got to work on, it's not like you can't outrun it. And so I think when I got done with the trip, I didn't really know what to do. So I went back to LA. So that year in 2022 in LA was, I don't want to call it a lost year, but it was just, I think it kind of continued to give me the knowledge that I needed to continue to shed. I kind of went back into that mode a little bit of creating and trying to like get myself to that place. So I ended up leaving again at the end of 2022 and couldn't get out of there fast enough.
When you mentioned it's a process and you started to trust the process, being in the flow with your intuition and
Yeah.
your inspiration, which is beautiful. I think many creatives, many artists talk about that being in that flow of inspiration. And that's what I'm feeling, sensing inside of me, that coming onto that wheel, that movement pattern. And what does that mean moving forward in the world? And you said shedding. So as you're moving forward, gaining more trust and more inspiration, what are you shedding?
uh, Shedding feelings of unworthiness, shedding the pressure that I needed to apply on myself to be somebody that was worthy, shedding,
So you get getting re-recruited back into the validation
well, a little bit,
space.
but it was also like just it's this been this for the last 4 years, just a little simmering process of shedding a lot of expectations on maybe how I felt things needed to be or were going to be. And so, I ended up moving to a small town in Arizona near Sedona a year ago, and it's been a great place to kind of refill my cup and just continue, even unconsciously, to just kind of like reset myself and see what is next, because I do know that I'll still be doing a lot of what I was doing, but I'm not exactly sure how it wants to show up, who it wants to show up with. And but I'm during this whole process of shedding, I'm also gaining strength in my own self-worthiness. I'm gaining strength in my trust that I will find something and figure out a way to do it that's fun for me and sustainable for me instead of the old way that I was doing it. And so it's intuitively, I've been feeling this for quite a while, you know what I mean, for the last year, of just when you really have something in your mind that you feel like it's going to happen a certain way and you had a little bit of success with it, and you feel like it's your life's mission, it's not always easy just to kind of like make that switch. And so for me, it's been a continual, I hate to keep we use the word shedding, but it's a continual releasing of my own expectations and incorrect beliefs about myself. And so then, as we both know, that's kind of how we met. I got my butt kicked again a few months ago. With the whole heart thing. And in a nutshell, do you want me to explain kind of what happened?
Yes, but as much
Yeah,
as
but
you'd
any
like to
questions about
share.
what I already said, though?
One was you were guiding us down the road of really self-discovery, self-awareness, right? Self-healing and self-mastery versus needing to control, push, and pull to be validated in the realm of you being such an inspirational artist, poet, writer, speaker, author, um, thought leader, emotional guider, many different aspects to stabilize our experience so that we can start to become centered, calm, peaceful, and knowing, that inner knowing, not the knowing of somebody else or somewhere else.
Right.
And really tapping into that inner knowing to know how the miracle is us, inspiring ourselves and each other all day long, every day.
Yeah.
And when we talk about validation, or we can move into something that's very prevalent in first world civilizations, including America, where we are, is money, right? And valuing ourselves by getting paid for what we do.
Yeah.
And it's so fascinating because how do we support each other, ourselves, each other, and the world around us to open to the idea that you can live in your giftedness, you can live in your miracles, you can live in your flow, you can live in your intuition without being woo woo or crazy or off the rocker, and inspiring everyone around us to be loved, to be valued, to be worthy, to be auspicious. And in that process, what is Brian's auspiciousness that he brings to the table? That now that he really does know his value, right? You said the validation is that financial report or that whatever, that bank account amount or those kinds of things that tell us that we've done a good job and we're validated for the
Mhm.
work we do and the love we bring forward. And it's fascinating how love is underpaid, undervalued, and undersupported. I mean, I saw an estimate on somewhere on some social media posting somewhere, like motherhood and even fatherhood, fathers who stay home for children and to support raising them and to be present in their world, supporting them with love, growth, fostering that in their childhood. And they're not paid a dime. And I'm not sure that we need to pay mothers or primary care providers, but what if we honor them in ways that we never thought possible? Like a new mom in the neighborhood and the whole neighborhood getting together and making meals. And many neighborhoods do that. But what if we did that like all around all the time with everyone? And what does that mean to be giving and sharing and receiving first, that it's okay to receive and then we share abundantly the next time around, and it starts that pay it forward train.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I'm curious where you're moving to, because I think many thought leaders who are being called in the world to wake up in their hearts, to be thought leaders, that their thought process, that their poetry, that their artistry, that their lyrics, that their screenplays, all of these things have value to share with us how to come out of this hamster wheel you described.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, um, it was always hard for me to receive too. So that was part of the problem also. I don't, maybe for one reason or another, I didn't feel worthy to receive, or it just, I haven't been, I don't know, taught to receive and what have you. But, you know,
Isn't that's a great stuck point? I think we're all, especially those who live in the heart, are it maybe through religion, maybe through other formats of indoctrination, that we have to believe that we have to give first to receive secondarily. And we end up giving, 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 that we're so depleted. Now we have an expectation that we're supposed to receive and we don't receive. Then
yeah.
we keep wandering through life going, what am I going to receive? What's that going to, and so you're exactly right. So what shifted for you to start to begin to recognize how you could receive?
Well, and receiving is so important because I mean, it completes a circle that needs to be there for moderation and balance. And just, I'm not, you can explain it better probably, but what taught me? I mean, it's been a process as well, but I think this experience I just recently had kind of really taught me how to receive. So in December, I went to the gym. I've been very active my whole life, and triathlons and different things. And I went and I started feeling immediately faint, and my heart was fluttery. And it's like, what is going on? So I left, went to urgent care. They did an EKG and they said, you need to go to the ER. I said, what? So I went to the ER and I was admitted, and I was in the hospital for 8 days while they ran just about every heart test you could possibly figure, do, just to kind of try to figure out what was going on with me. And they found that I had a small congenital hole that had never filled, as well as my mitral valve, for some reason, had degraded. And so between the two, I had a lot of inefficient blood flow. And so I had to have open heart surgery. And so a few months later, just actually a month ago today, I had surgery to get a new valve and to patch the hole. And so those 2 or 3 months leading up to my surgery um, were really the beginning of me. I don't know, just, when something major like that happens, it just kind of automatically resets you whether you want to be or not. And in similar ways to the prostate cancer, but in also a lot different ways, it was humbling. I mean, I had a lot of hospital bills. I had pretty good insurance, but still a lot of bills. And so I did something that was terrifying for me, and it was to do a GoFundMe. I mean, it's just like I'm supposed to be this perfect guy that has it all figured out and is successful and creative and whatever. And it's like, oh man, you know what I mean? But I did it and been very grateful um, for the funds that have come in. But not only that, I just had so many other people reach out to me in different ways, whether it was a card or sent me a care package or whatever. And it's just, I'm getting emotional now. It's just, whew. But it really helped me just kind of like learn how to receive once and for all.
Wow. Learned how to receive once and for all. And so you call it kick in the butt moments. I refer to them. I've had so many, it's hard to even imagine. And I think instead of getting jaded from those personal experiences all throughout my life, I realized I kept in a kind of a commisery kind of way or a victim kind of way of hoping tomorrow would feel better than today. And being hopeful walking forward and wondering what it's about. And it's so interesting because I've done it so many times that I really recognized I'm like, wow, what if all of these healing opportunities or these healing problems or tragedies are opportunities for us, like you shared so beautifully, to receive a reset that we didn't know was available. And
Or that we
so I got
needed.
to a point, yeah, I got to a point later in life where I'm like, I received enough head injuries to recognize I'm good. I'm complete with head injuries. I
Yeah.
don't have to keep getting through my thick skull. The ways to improve and grow and adjust and reset. And you know what's amazing is they stopped. Those head injuries stopped. And because what I did was I agreed that healing opportunities were available. And so I said with myself, I said, I'm complete with being sick. I'm complete with having tragedies. I'm complete with breaking bones. I'm complete with doing all these extracurricular health activities to reset myself. And now I recognize more subtly when I'm stuck or when I don't know what to do next. I say, I clearly need a new perspective. The perspectives that I have so far have gotten me to this space, but it's not illuminating an opportunity to transcend,
Mm,
to transmute, to transfigure into that next version of myself.
yeah.
And you're right, it is such a process. It is a journey. And along the journey, how can we enjoy that journey to help ourselves reset when we get re-recruited back into the old patterns? We it's amazing because I see so much in the spiritual thought leader world about how we grow past our friends, we grow past our family. And what if we don't need to anymore? What if we can recognize everybody's where they're at, they're on their path and their journey. And if I see even some couples and some people choose not to accelerate in their growth because they don't want to leave the other one behind.
Mm.
And so with your words of wisdom that we're receiving so beautifully with you and from you today, a month out of open heart surgery. If by the way, you look amazing. You
Thank
look
you.
beautiful, vibrant, healthy, lovely, energetic. It's amazing. Thank
Thanks.
you for sharing in such a short period of time of, resetting and coming back to us. And we have the honor and the graciousness to receive the wisdom you have to share that's unique and inspirational from you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Right? A
Yeah.
moment of graciousness. Everyone who's watching and who's participating in this soul cast, we thank you too, as your participation adds to our speaking. It shares with us how to guide our speaking to meet you and us where we're all at, creating this illustrious reality together. Moving through some of the pain points or the suffering points we believe that we're so awful and terrible. And maybe in hindsight, like a few friends of mine share, thought leaders share with me, that these tragedies or these incidences of health and healing are opportunities for growth far beyond what we expected we could receive.
Yeah. Can I add one thing really quick?
Please.
What just came up for me is, one thing looking back and just most recently, I'm really good at surrendering to big things like that. And it doesn't mean quitting or giving in. It just means surrendering to the process that's happening. And I think that's helped me get through stuff as well. And I know also that there's probably lessons to be had, and I'm open to them. And so, if anybody else has a tough thing coming up or whatever, I know it's not easy. It sucks. I mean, the first couple of weeks after I got out of surgery sucked, and I wouldn't wish it on anybody. But, I've recovered pretty quickly. But I think going into the surgery, it was scary, but I also just, I think I did a pretty good job of just relaxing into it. And I think that's really important too. And that can be very helpful.
It sure can be very helpful. When we are when we are scared and we're little and young, what do we do when we're typically scared and not knowing how to, the first instinct would be to control the situation.
Yeah.
So what do we typically do, right? We have coping mechanisms. We run, we hide,
Go to a
we
parent.
disassociate, right? I think I was really good at playing possum, like playing dead. I'm not here. You can't see me. Or, chameleon, blend in with the walls, and then I'd enter a room and people would go, when did you arrive? And I'm like, I've been here for half an hour. And that's when you have feedback to go, it worked. I was invisible to the environment. And so we have all these tactics, right, to be able to cope with our environments.
Yeah.
Now, how do we, when we're grown up and we're ready to master our fearful situations, we didn't realize we had all these childhood kind of patterns.
Mm.
So, how do you support people inviting them in, including yourself, to experience those patterns we didn't realize were holding us back?
Gosh. Well, I think always, one thing I've always tried to do is be the observer in my own situation, even when I was, you know, still trying to validate myself. I still kind of tried to pay attention, you know what I mean? And we get more and more aware as we're going along. But I mean, that'd probably be the first thing, just really try to just see how you're acting, see how you're responding to the news, see how you're responding to, what people say. And I don't know. Does that make sense? Just really try to kind of like get above yourself and look down and witness your process through whatever you're going through. And that can
That's
be
a
pretty.
really beautiful, that's a really beautiful process. And I want to call it a superpower, right? And we love when we're younger and even when we're older to engage in our superpowers, our abilities to create miracles, right? That's really what it is. And when you shared about witnessing yourself, when you did that, when your awareness came out of your body and you were above your body or aside your body or holding holding your body,
Mhm.
different things, when you were providing support in that way, how did that part of you witnessing you feel, experience life? What was that positioning experience like?
Mm. I mean, I think it was kind of an ongoing thing, but it kind of taught me how to be more. It also taught me how to kind of witness and be around other people too, and maybe take off some of the initial uh, whatever if they didn't act necessarily the way that I would act or whatever. You know what I mean? It taught me how to be more empathetic. It taught me how to be more just probably patient in some ways. It's taught me how to just, you know, um, it's just helped me in my own self-awareness growth process, which is probably as a side, as a what am I trying to say? It's helped me eliminate some of my bad habits or places that I would continually go back to that didn't necessarily help me, if that makes sense.
That's really great because I sense most of us, many of us, we were taught in society to receive the value of others or the discernment of others, or sometimes their assumptions, sometimes their reflections, many times their projections, right? Because other people want to control their situation, control the relationship, control the environment, and we're led to believe that manipulating and controlling our environments will get us what we want. And we're good at that, right? At 4 years old, when we want a cookie, what do? We whine. And we know parents hate whining. They can't stand it, right? Especially if they're really tired. So you can get them right at that trigger point, and then they'll give you the cookie, right? Or they'll punish you, and then you grow up believing you can never receive a cookie or what you want,
Mm.
right? Because your parents are punishing. These kinds of things. So we make up these discernments, or these, we surmise or we gather the evidence to share what
Mm.
is true in our reality. And I sense what you're really sharing here, which is so valuable, is we have the opportunity ourselves to come out of our present locked in situation and look from afar, or look at a distance, shining the light of who we truly are, unencumbered, undoubtful, unconcerned, truly compassionate, non judgmental, caring, and opportunistic, to
Mhm.
share what is it that I see from of myself from this other perspective.
Yes, and it also taught me how to. A lot of times, like if I had a bad moment, whether it was flipping somebody off in traffic or whatever, it just like I was able to kind of like, all right, why did I just do that? And I would kind of backtrack and like, is it because maybe I'm nervous of my upcoming audition or whatever? But it taught me also how to kind of put myself in other people's shoes. And, you know, if they did something that was not their best moment, it's like, oh, I've done that myself. You know what I mean? And it just kind of really just heightened my whole way of being around people. And I don't know, and just trying to get to the bottom of things before maybe they kept happening.
That's so beautiful. And when you grew up now, all through those
Yeah.
tragedies, challenges, and situations, and recognized the hamster wheel was here,
Yeah.
and we were on it, and what can we do to reset ourselves? When you started to become inspired to write your book, would you share with everybody what your book is, and what is the context, or what does it represent? What does it bring forward into the world, your book?
Very first book that I kind of accidentally wrote.
Yeah.
Okay, there's others, but it was just it's called Brian's List: 26 Snap Easy to Use Ideas on How to Live a Fun, Balanced, Healthy Life, and it's just about 30 different ways that we can find balance in our lives. And I kind of had a drawing done of me in kind of a comical way to kind of it's a simple book, but I mean it's evergreen. I mean, we all are struggle with balance from time to time, and some of the things I write about are very obvious and that we forget, and others are it's like, oh, I never thought about that. That would help me. You know what I mean? So they're just different ways to kind of maybe try to help yourself find more balance in your life. Yeah.
Creating more balance in your life. And then what are your next books? What is the evolution of your authoring?
Okay, then after that, I think I did one called Finding Your Voice, and it was a compilation of a bunch of short blogs and poems and a few other things that I did. And then I did my first children's book, which is called Steve the Alien. And it's actually, we're in the process of trying to sell it as a cartoon, so cross your fingers. Then I did another children's book called Lucy and Chester's Amazing Adventures. And we're also going to try to make sell that as a cartoon. It's a really neat, empowering story book for girls. And then I did Habits for Success, which was my first publishing deal, and that was really exciting. And I'm really proud of how it turned out. And then about a year ago, I did with a friend of mine. We put a compilation book together, and we each wrote a story, and we helped other people write their stories, and it's called Dare to Dream: Women and Men Who Refuse to Let Their Dreams Die.
Dare to Dream, Women and Men Who Refuse to Let Their Dreams Die.
Yeah.
Now, in that book, what is your dream that's unfolding that you're,
What story did I write? I wrote
yeah.
about when I was in college, my kneecap got knocked out of place playing mud football with some of my fraternity brothers. And I was very active in high school, play a lot of sports. And so it sucked. I mean, it was depressing. I wasn't able to, move. I wasn't exactly sure how it was going to be after I got it better. But I had a couple buddies who had done a short course triathlon the year before. And this is like in 1986 when triathlons were really, really new. And I just like, bing, just like had this all systems go, like, I'm going to set a goal of doing a short triathlon in a year after I rehab my knee. And so that just kind of sparked me. I got really motivated and did a class at Oregon State. It was called a rehab PT class, and the guy who taught it was amazing and very inspiring. And so I, did that. I worked out on my own, and then I just started getting ready for the race, and I did it, and it was a lot of fun, and I got hooked. I did 4 more that summer. The next year, I did 10 races, and then the third summer, I did my first Ironman triathlon. And so it's a really interesting experience because even before I did, as I was training for that very, very first one, I wrote my very first poem. It's called The Triathlete. It's not very good, but I just kind of envisioned what it would be like finishing an Ironman triathlon. So in a lot of ways, I didn't realize it at the time. I was just manifesting what was going to happen in a couple of years. And so that was kind of a fun experience. Yeah.
So beautiful. So you're describing really coming off that hamster wheel and learning how to create the wheel of joy or the road to joy, the road to
Well,
inspiration.
it really fired me. This is, a long time, almost 40 years ago now, but it really was just a fun time of my life where I just, it was all new. I was testing myself. I was putting myself out there and having fun training with friends. And I'd go do a race, and it was, just made me feel really good about myself because I think there was obviously a lot of that part of me needed to be healed, still the self-worthiness, but it kind of like acted as a really nice band-aid for a long time because I was really fit and I was doing all this stuff that hardly anybody has done. And so it was kind of this nice chip in my back pocket, going forward. And it probably helped me when I left my family business and kind of started going into learning about myself in a different way with the creativity and stuff. It was just another deep dive into kind of seeing who I was and what I was capable of.
Seeing who you are and seeing what you're capable of. And now you've just gone through at the top end of 2024 in the year, uh, becoming your full awareness in your heart, right? And sharing that physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and in every dimension of our experience and our existence. What now, a month from that pivotal point of surgery, have you really gathered inside of you that would be sharing and inspirational for everyone to connect with?
Wow. I think some of it's still yet to be seen, but I just feel different. I feel more relaxed. I feel more heart centered. I feel less pressure to, you know, I still want to obviously create and share in large ways, but I just feel more comfortable in my skin with who I am. Not necessarily worrying about what other people think, which hounded me for a lot of my life. I feel more just, truly connected with good people and just really, well, at the top of the list is gratitude. I just feel so much more. I've always been pretty grateful but it just like washes over my whole being right now.
Wow. What a beautiful place to share is a journey to gratitude. right?
Yeah.
When many of us may feel that we were put here. And right, we're putting on clothes, put the toothpaste on the toothbrush, brush your teeth, and that relinquishes some level of what we could perceive as control, right? That we did not choose to be here, or we did not, or we may have chosen to be here and therefore we were put here. So some of this is our journey of self-discovery, right? Self-awareness, self-mastery, and in
Self-love.
that self-love. And in that process, what do you feel is the greatest journey to self-love for yourself, me, us, we, everyone in our environment called humanity and our beautiful planet Earth? How do we cultivate that self-love?
Gosh, for everybody, it's so different. And I think, it's easy to understand sometimes intellectually, and I felt like I did too, but yet it wasn't there. And ultimately, I mean, we're already enough, no matter what happens. And it's hard to really buy into that until you understand it. But it's true.
Until you understand it and it's true. Wow.
And
So possibly the understanding comes after the truth is exposed. And maybe that's where trust and faith and trust in the process begins the evolution of the journey of inspiration.
trusting the process is everything. And it's one thing I want to say too that I forgot to say earlier, and you told me this the other day, that just sometimes just remember also, like, a feeling isn't necessarily forever. It's just a temporary feeling. And I forgot what the second part of what that was, but that's really important to remember too, because we all ride the roller coaster of life and have ups and downs and have days that suck and have days that are great. And just to remember those days that are tough, or a temporary feeling that you're having isn't truth.
It isn't truth. And sometimes we judge our experiences into the future, I mean, into the now, from the past into the future, by judging how we feel is the measure of truth of what's going on. And we tie then that feeling of truth to our intuition. And we get confused inside of our intuition, which I sense many people with all the narratives that we can create nowadays and all the platforms of technology that we can convey communication.
Mhm.
We tend to get tied up in how do we discern whether that news or that narrative is truthful or not.
Mhm.
And then we go back and we fall back on how do we feel about that? How do we feel about that person? How do we feel about their communication? Do they make our hair stand up on our, do they touch, move, and inspire us and tell us what we really want to hear? Or because lots of marketing around that. Or are they telling us really what we needed to hear or chose to hear to move us from being put here to choosing to be here?
Yeah.
Right. You may have preconception and conception and gestation in mommy's tummy, right? Known that you chose to be here, but somehow in our collective consciousness, we don't always feel like we have a choice,
Mm.
or our presence doesn't matter, right? You somehow kept that candle going up till 3, right? And said, my presence matters. I'm here, right? To inspire, touch, move, and inspire people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is really beautiful. And so inside your inspiration, many of us share, or in the past, we have shared our tragedy stories, our transcendent stories. If you took a moment and we had everyone listening to this soul cast so deeply and hearing it in our heart, feeling it in our body, what is that moment of true inspiration that inspired you, lit you up inside where you knew that you could develop yourself to the space of knowing that you're truly inspirational?
That's a tough question. It's just always kind of been there. And I just kind of maybe always subconsciously felt like it was my life's mission ever since I mentioned that when I was little. And it kind of, even before I knew it, through those years of high school and triathloning and all that kind of stuff and running the family business, it was there. It wasn't as loud, but it was there. And I think it probably just influenced me in the way that I wanted to learn. I'm very curious. When I was young, my mom said the only word that ever came out of my mouth was why. And so I've always been very curious and tried to better myself and read and that's just those are all steps to continue to learn and grow and gain awareness and wisdom and keep utilizing that each step of the way as we continue to get even more um, information and hopefully, which came for me a little later, just that self-awareness and or self-acceptance and self-worthiness. I mean, ultimately, if you can love yourself, everything falls into place. Everything. You stop trying to validate yourself in so many ways that we do that hold us back and cause us more problems. And so I think ultimately our whole journey is just to really try to find that self-love.
Yeah. And you gave one really beautiful, inspirational, miraculous key of taking the opportunity to come out of the pain and suffering, float above it, if you could call it that, and see another perspective. And in that perspective, create solutions based in love, the true essence of you,
Yeah.
versus being stuck in the physical body in the middle of the pain and suffering. And it's very challenging, you're correct, to be in that pain and suffering and to be knotted up into that ball of frustration and see an opportunity to create solutions based in love from that fear of it never getting better or it always coming back.
Yeah, I'm lucky in that maybe I haven't utilized the victim role during my life, and I've been through a lot. We all have, right? But yet I just try to just reframe it and just see what I've learned from that experience. And if I hadn't gone through it, I wouldn't be the version of myself that I am now. And I wouldn't have had other opportunities to connect with people or learn and grow. And what really helped me this most recent time was just all the love that I received from everybody, even those, during that tough couple of weeks afterwards, and so my sister was here helping out and I was just um, awash in gratitude.
Yeah,
And
a
that kind of
lot.
helped protect me
Yeah.
from some of those other things.
And that gratitude gave you this whole energy field of love, support, comfort, maybe peace, calm, relaxation.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so many people share the situation is they're like, how can I be in gratitude? That's false. I'm making it up. It's not really true when I'm in the middle of this pain and suffering. What would you share as an inspiration to support people moving from that space of severe pain and suffering even in the moment of its severity and moving through it and beyond it and then seeing the opportunity? What for you, right? Because I think it's hard for people to be in gratitude when
Oh,
they're in massive pain.
I mean, I've been there too. Absolutely. I'm not exactly sure. I mean, and then it's so, I don't know. I guess I can just trust the process and just hold on to those moments that you find really important and just kind of just try to start to envision yourself being there again, whatever that means to that particular person. Um,
Gosh, I just had an epiphany in your presence, and I sense this is why we create conversations. We create um, as somebody said, we're moving from a conversation to a soulversation
Mm.
or a heartversation. And you moving to a heartversation, we really do, when we're in the midst of pain and suffering and we experience a lot of pain and suffering consistently, we start to develop patterns of believing that we can't move through it. We can't move beyond it.
Yeah.
Right? And then how could we recall in the middle of the process that we could have a heartversation with our process rather than a conversation conning us into
Mm.
something else that doesn't function, that doesn't work well, that's still based in fear. And recalling and going, wow, I'm in the middle of pain and suffering. I get it. I brought it on, they brought it on, somebody else brought it on, the environment brought it on, whatever occurred. So whatever the source is, we can address the source also.
Mhm.
But in the immediate pain and suffering aspect, we could come into that realizing rather than having to control and control, right? And we learn as we grow up, if we can control the future, then no bad things will happen to me.
Right.
And so, how do we move out of that pattern? I need to control the future so no bad things will happen to me. In the now moment, what do we have access to that we didn't know we had before?
Mm. Gosh. I mean, for me, I think it just the relief I felt when I got my cancer diagnosis, just like, oh, I can take a break and I have permission to take a break. And just like I was able to really tangibly feel the difference of how much I was pushing and pressing to try to make things happen compared to when I got to like take a break for a while. And so that's kind of what helped me. Now I know that's not going to happen to everybody, but just really just it all comes back to self-awareness. I mean, if you find yourself getting short with people, if you find yourself kind of snapping or getting angry or you're tired, I mean, just like ask yourself why, and it's usually because we are putting too much pressure on ourselves or we're trying to do more than we can handle or we're trying to validate ourselves in some way, right?
Yes. So we have a moment in the moment of pain and suffering to transcend it by recognizing we're whole, we're enough. We validate ourselves for our presence. And even though we're not in the mode to touch, move, and inspire ourselves or others, how may we move into the trusting the process that maybe this pain and suffering is offering us a reset,
Well,
offering us
yeah.
a change in perspective.
What helped me recently in the hospital, a day or two after my surgery, I mean, I was in there for about a week. They gave me a drug to lower my resting heart rate. I think AV disassociation is what you called it. And it was the worst 3 days of my life. The side effects were just horrible. I was in a depressive stupor for 3 days and it just flush and just horrible. I had to take that for the rest of my life, I would not want to live. It was that bad. And I guess what helped me during that period, I don't know, it just was the kindness of some of the nurses. You just kind of try to grab onto whatever you can and just, I knew that I didn't want to take that anymore. And so they stopped. Um, but those 3 days were tough. And but yeah, but the nurses were amazing. And so that, I don't know, just there's hopefully there's always something that you can just kind of maybe hold on to, even if it's just a temporary fix. But ultimately it comes from that part within ourselves that if, when we can get to that place of just knowing that we're enough and this isn't who I am, this is temporary. And yeah.
It's so true. Like you gave really me an epiphany of really understanding some things. Sometimes when we're given medicine or pharmaceuticals, it's push and it makes us move the needle of that energy process that isn't functioning so well. And so you've been on a journey of releasing push and control and trusting the process. And then you're swallowing a pill that's making your heart have a specific arrhythmia that or a non-arrhythmia being normal and supporting its electrical rhythm system. And there's probably a part of you that's going, no, no, I can do this myself. And maybe rejecting the medications by having more severe symptoms. Because it
Mm.
sounded like, from what you were just describing, is that your whole being was affected by this drug.
It was horrible. Yeah.
And so maybe that's an insight too, to say, wait, I think I can take the reins myself. And I may not need this much push to move me through this process of healing.
Mm. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so instead of us maybe blaming the drug, or blaming, and just tuning in and asking the universe, asking what, that inner guidance that we have, and saying, is this medicine pushing me too hard? Is it taking over? Is it controlling me? And I'm ready to take the reins myself.
Mm.
And so how can I work in conjunction with this medication to get to that space that's functional and wean off this medication? But it's challenging because we're in an in a system that says you're going to have to take, because it worked, you're going to have to take this for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And I know in that system, we're also, all of us, patients, healthcare providers, everybody, are looking towards the opportunity is, when can the person take the reins themselves? When
Mhm.
can their body be restored to a space where they don't need this medication anymore to continue happily, insightfully, and expressing the miracle as us? So I think it was such a great opportunity, honestly, that you had that experience, to be able to recognize you could say, no, I got this.
Yeah, it was so it was so tough. It's just like I can't do this for the I can't do this for the rest of my life. And I just yeah. And it's just it's a trust. It's another trust opportunity.
Yes. And look at where you are now, right? Coming through the other side of that situation, and holding it, and holding that healing pattern, and integrating that healing pattern. As you say, the journey is still unfolding, and what are we becoming? Closer to the heart, like literally, physically, right? And
Yeah, I had to
would
have
you
my
share?
oh go ahead. I had to have my heart
I,
open to have my heart open.
I had to have my heart open to open my heart. Exactly. Or I had to open my heart to have my heart open. Exactly. And so, and what does that look like for each and every individual, right? It's removing distrust. It's removing doubt. And it's not just, in a flash, it's gone. It's a process of unraveling what we built.
For me, it's been 4 years, just a gradual, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So true, so true. So thank you so much for
Yeah.
coming on board and sharing how deeply, deeply, how the miracle is you. Would you share words of wisdom in the realm of poetry, in the realm of words and communication with everyone,
Mm.
about the inspiration and the inspiring Brian you're living into after all of these enchanting experiences of transformation?
Do you want me to recite something that kind of fits or
Please share what your heart would love to share.
uh, something that just popped in? Let's see. Well, there's two or three that would fit right now, but this one, let me see here. It's coming up real quick. Thanks for being patient.
Beautiful, thank you.
Yeah. It's called Almost Me, and I actually did a video for it a few years back. Um, but it kind of fits what we were talking about in some of my journey. So chasing a result left me feeling bare. Worthiness questioned, happiness was rare. Incomplete body, unnatural lull. Focused surface view, colorless and dull. As I searched outside, I would squint to see, always wanting more, that I'm almost me. Then I stopped the chase and listened to my heart, set aside my fears, and played my truest part, using what I have, trusting it's enough, letting my light shine, clearing out old stuff. Intentions in sync, life clearly in flow. Always been complete. I just didn't know. Being my true self, weight began to shed. Forward moving now, no more have to tread. Sun shining brighter, gratitude in stow. No more almost me. I was always whole.
Wow. I'm breathing that in. Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow. That I could see you illuminate and shine and inspire. What a beautiful poem.
I haven't read it for a while, but it's kind of making me emotional.
Yes, I could feel
Show the
it.
difference between like kind of understanding it intellectually a little bit and starting to begin to understand it and then really setting in it.
Yeah, living inside of those words and those phrases and bringing that communication like to every cell of our body. It's remarkable.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. How may people get in touch with you and have access to your poetry and your books?
Oh, thanks. My website is just gbrianbenson.com. I'm on most social media, like at gbrianbenson. And yeah,
Lovely. Well, I look forward to hearing more and being inspired more by your presence in the world. Thank you so much, Brian, for being our guest today
it's my
and
pleasure.
sharing how the miracle is you.
Thanks, Ashley. Thank you.
Thank you. So much gratitude.